What's going on, guys? You got Quasi here for Quasi Animation Studio and Quasi Media Network. We're going to do something real quick and fast and fun. So lately, I've been getting more and more into doing heavier camera actions and motions. So this could probably help you in your realistic animations, but also with your anime animations. So let's get into it. Now, let me show you exactly what I mean. All right. Okay, so in regards to that, let me turn this down some because I don't want that to trump my voice. So this camera is already set up. Okay, so we have it set. It's at 90 degrees and it's pulled back from the character. She has a walk animation on her. Of course, this is Crimson. I have a depth of field empty as I usually do. So we click that and I push it I go on to Z. We can see we have depth of field, right? But the difference here is now what I'm going to do is I have it locked, but I'm going to undo that. Okay. And it's going to go back to his original location because that is his original location. Let me show you what I'm going to do this time. This time, I'm going to lock it as a child of to her head. Okay, so I'm going to clear it out, right? And I'm going to go child of. I'm going to get rid of the scale, and we're going to make it her armature. Now, the deal is I'm going to push this up to the top of her head, go over to it, because I want this to focus on her. Okay. So put it basically right close to the front of her face. All right. So I'm going to give it a thing and make it her head. Now, it's going to tell me to do the inverse. So I'll do the inverse and then go from there. Now, this is also the camera's depth of field is going to be on. And I'm going to make sure that it goes to that empty. So we're going to say depth. And I'm going to give it a 2.9 aperture on the f-stop. Okay. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Now, the camera, we're going to give it a constraint. Okay, once we do this, we're going to use a damp track. Now, the reason for this is we're going to deal with the influence on the damp track. So this will allow for some creative actions, okay, where you wouldn't have to animate much, but it depends on what you want to do. So I did this similar shot over on the main network channel where the character was running into the scene. He's running from someone, but there was a damp track. There was no animation on the camera. The camera was damp track to the character, but I reduced the influence. Okay, so let's damp track it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that it's her armature. And then we're going to go head. So we're going to have a damp track to her head. Right? Okay. So it's going to ask for a different influence. It's going to go negative Z because if we do anything else, it's going to go upside down. Right? So it's got to be negative Z. And then I'm going to reduce the influence to about 0.45. Okay. So when we hit play, the camera is going to move with her a little bit. But as it goes, and to say I increase it, the more I increase it, the more influence she has over the camera's motion and actions. Okay. So as we can see here, the camera's, let's say we stop right there, it stays the same. It's just adjusting it at its origin. So it's damp track to it, right? Okay, so now if I move the camera, now watch this. If I move the camera because the influence is as high as it is, watch what happens. I'm sorry, let's lock it to view. So let me push it in. Let's lock it to view. All right. Now, when I go to turn it, it'll still let me move, right? But you see how when I start to try to rotate in different directions, how it starts to influence it? Okay. So now my ability to turn certain directions is now gone because of the way that it's locked. All right. So let's go back to 0, make this 90. All right. And then I'll spin it just ever so slightly. So now it's going to rock with her. Now, again, I'm not moving anything. Now, let's say I want to move this like so. So since it's not on the local and I go to do this to see how, because it's damp track to it, but it's because of the influence. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to bring the influence down again. And then I'll do it again this time. This time now I have more control, but it's still tracked to it to a certain extent. So we get a certain amount of motion with it. And this right here can help you depending on how much frequency you want to give to each character. If you have a fight scene going on, you might want to take an empty and then parent both characters to that empty. But no, I'm sorry, parent the empty to those characters. And then every time they move, that empty is going to follow whoever the main character is that's doing the most actions or whatever the case may be. And there's different ways or different applications you can use for this. So yeah, again, this is one of those things where you just kind of sort of have to figure out how you're going to use it. So there's all sorts of applications. So again, let's say I just want to go above. So we still have a certain amount of action. Now I'm not having to animate anything. You haven't seen me keyframed anything for this camera. So if I go all the way to max influence, she has a complete influence to it. So it's one of those things where you just kind of sort of have to figure out what it is that you want to do, and that in itself is what I'm trying to get everyone to. This is something that could help in more than one way. Oh, I just realized what happened there because it's damp tracked completely. So let me turn it off so I can fix this. All right, let's go to 0, go to 1, -1. It's upside down, isn't it? All right. Okay. So if I push her back, she should be into the front. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I forgot to change the Y location. Okay, so change the Y location. Go down a little bit more and turn the damp track back on. So now automatically it adjusts, my bad, it adjusts to that character. And this is one of the things that I've been wanting to demonstrate, is that this is something that I use quite often and that I've been using a lot more in animations, depending on what it is that's happening in the shot. So the things you see me do, where you see me animating something, that those shots weren't done this way, but there are other shots that have been, because the more intense the scene is, sometimes you have to use this in conjunction to animation. So I've used this where the track was damp tracked to a particular part of the character, maybe their chest or their arm or something like that, to that effect. And there's an animation on the camera because I want it to move a certain way. And that's the thing where I'm like trying to get you guys to see that there are so many applications that you can use to create the feeling that you want in your scenes. So I hope this helps someone. I hope that it gave you some inspiration to try it out, test it out, see what happens. So with that being said, man, nothing but love. Catch you guys on the flip side.